Hey everybody, this is Max over at the Downtown Library. Welcome to Fun Friday, and today we're going to be talking about holograms. Now, to understand how a hologram works, first you have to understand how your eye actually sees light. So essentially the way we see things, and this is very, very basic, light comes down, it hits an object, it bounces into our eye, and like the cones in the back of your eye are able to perceive light, an image, if you will. So let's assume we want to recreate this table, and I want to recreate this table so that way everyone can see it and it be like a 3D object, right? All I need to do that is just to recreate the light. I don't actually have to do any like matter transformation, energy transference. All I have to do is essentially recreate the light that's bouncing off the table. And that's essentially how a hologram works. All they're doing is just recreating an image based on the light that bounces off an object. And so this idea has actually been around for a really, really long time. The first, as far as I was able to tell, the first recorded person to actually try and do this was, and I'm going to butcher his name, Giambattista della Porta. And so he was like actually Nepalese, and he had this idea for creating a box that would be able to they'd be able to bounce the light through a plastic, glass sheet, and then it create an image on the other side. And according to him, it worked. We don't have any record of it working. We have a very small description in one of his manuscripts that says it worked. But he was known for being a bit of a fibber, if you will. He was an illusionist, but he would call himself like a scholar and like an educated individual and a romantic, professor that would go around and like show these like little illusions. One of the ones that we do know worked was a obscura camera, or a camera obscura, and essentially what it was is like a hole in the wall, and it would show a picture on the other side. But yeah, so he's not really reputable as far as his descriptions. But we think that he was the first one to do it. The person that we actually know was able to actually get it to work was Pereira Seguin. I have zero confidence in my pronunciation.
Seguin.
Seguin?
Seguin.
Seguin. Okay, Seguin. Yeah, so he essentially built a box, and he knew that the theory of this box would work, but it never did for him. He went all over Europe trying to get this thing to work, showing it off in like king's courts and to different like institutions, and it really didn't work for him. So he set it aside and was like, I'm going to come back to this eventually, and he did eventually get it to work down the line near the end of his life. But the only problem was he couldn't patent it. And the reason he couldn't patent it was because a painter who was working in his house named Henry Robin, basically saw the box, copied it, and then patented it. So he kind of got all the credit for this guy's work. Although no one really remembers either of them, because down the line, about 10 years later, John Pepper, a chemist, and a buddy of his named Henry Drix were able to build one that was cheap and effective that would work on a stage. It was basically Henry Drix's idea. He went around trying to sell this idea to stages. It didn't work, but John Pepper met up with him and was like, hey, I've got a great idea to make it cheaper and more effective. And they get all the credit, and that's why what we're talking about today is Pepper's box, not Seguin or Porta. And essentially what they did was they put this big glass sheet on stage that they could lower, that people wouldn't be able to see in a darkened theater. And when they shined light through it, they were able to project an image of a ghost. And it was actually, I think it was like a Charles Dickens play that they were doing this for. Christmas Story, that's what it is. Anyway, so we're going to try and recreate this. And so now to kind of get some science idea down. essentially, let's say you have like a ghost, right? You shine some light on the ghost, make this nice and bright, and if you have a piece of glass that's at a 45-degree angle, and 45 degrees is kind of like the magic number because of geometry. It's really complicated. I'm not going to get into why it has to be 45 degrees, but basically it has to be 45 degrees. And as light shines through this 45-degree angle, it recreates an image as long as this room is also lit. And so today we're going to be trying to redo all of this, and it's technically referred to as a reverse optical beam splitting pyramid. Yeah. Let's get started. So this is what your final object's going to look like. Right, so we got 45-degree angles. As light comes from the bottom up, it's going to bounce into here, and it's going to create a 3D image inside of this box. Okay. I have some instructions that will be put up on the Facebook later so you guys can have the precise measurements. But essentially you're going to end up with a paper object like this that you're going to be able to transfer over to a clear plastic sheet just like this. Let's go ahead and do that. All you're going to need for this is some clear plastic sheeting. It can be basically anything as long as it's clear and plastic. Absolutely, it cannot be anything that has any kind of tint to it, because if it's foggy at all, if it comes from like a storage container that's not perfectly clear, it won't. You'll get an image, but it won't be nearly as good. Let's go ahead and transfer this over. So there's one. Once you get them all cut out, you're going to put them together like this. You want them to line up as best as you can. And then you want to get some perfectly clear tape. So this is just like some normal Scotch tape. But yeah, again, any kind of tint to it at all is going to distort the image. Okay, there you go. So when you're all finished, you want to make sure you fold it in on the side with the tape, so fold it in. So this side, the side that's pointing out, should not have the tape on it. And the reason for that is that if you fold it this way, what do we have? You're getting a curve. Any kind of curve like that, you just ruin the image. So fold it in on the side with the tape. Okay. So once we do that, and we get all four sides cut out, we get it all taped up, it's going to look like this. And preferably, it's going to sit flat. So now, let's see what that looks like. Find my image. Let's darken this. got yourself a little jellyfish. You got it? And so again, the reason we're doing that, the reason we have it at a 45-degree angle is because otherwise light doesn't really pass through it quite right. You start to get like an elongated jellyfish, or sometimes the picture just doesn't even appear because you're not getting it at the right angle. So that is our hologram box for today, our Pepper's ghost, if you will. And now you will have your very own reverse optical beam splitting pyramid, which I think sounds so much cooler than a hologram, but that's just me. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Bye.